people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
News. Okay, we'll start with this. Boxing insider Rick Glaser stated, anyone that is behind Errol Spence ever fighting again should look at themselves in a mirror and say, my parents raised me better than what I became. A lowlife piece of shit.
Why would he say that?
It's because anyone urging Errol Spence Jr. to fight on, given these circumstances, can't have his health and his well-being in mind. It's not simply because he suffered the first loss of his professional boxing career so much as how he lost and how difficult it will be to come back. It's already been over a year's time since he was demoralized, since he was beaten by Terence Crawford. More than a year's time has passed. His career-long trainer, he's not with him anymore.
Gone.
147 pounds? He can't make it anymore.
Can't do it.
He is left with no choice but to move up in weight to junior middleweight, but it's taking him a long time to do it. And when he returns, rumor has it, he's going to be fighting Sebastian Fundora.
Nobody with a conscience is behind that fight.
Sebastian is arguably the most awkward fighter. That's the most awkward fight you can have at 154 pounds, because how many 154 pounders stand in at about 6'5" with the physical dimensions and awkwardness Sebastian brings to the table? That's hardly a rebound fight for a fighter that's coming off a loss, like Errol's coming off a loss, and rumor has it, that's supposed to be his next fight.
Nobody with a conscience is behind that fight.
So I saw a Twitter user, a wide-eyed optimist, that goes by the name Mr. Neutral say, I need to hear from Spence in rebuttal to Rick Glaser's tweet. Put that idiot straight, Errol.
Why is Rick Glaser gotta be an idiot?
This is the guy that calls himself Mr. Neutral. That didn't seem very neutral of him. I guess he doesn't like the realities that Rick is pointing out, the realities that we often point out here on this channel.
If Errol wasn't damaged goods going into the Crawford fight, he certainly was coming out of it afterwards.
If you're one of these people that's waiting for Errol to come back under these circumstances, yeah, you must be some kind of wide-eyed optimist.
You would have to be.
Even if you didn't lose your last fight, over a year of inactivity is going to affect you. Even if you didn't get your ass kicked in your last fight, parting ways with your career-long trainer that has been with you since your amateur career, that's going to affect you too.
And it doesn't help that since having parted ways with Derek James, Errol hasn't hired a new trainer. He hasn't hired anybody new.
It doesn't help that up until this point, Errol wasn't living the life. He wasn't living the life of a fighter, and it shows. How many times was this guy intoxicated in public?
So when he suffers his first professional loss, it's no wonder it's taking him so long to come back. If he comes back at all, some people don't think he should. Rick doesn't think he should, and for that,
Mr. Neutral, who's supposed to be neutral, thinks he's an idiot. No, you're just the wide-eyed optimist. You think that boxing is some kind of a video game or a fairy tale.
How many fairy tale endings are there in the sport of boxing?
I'm not surprised to see that Errol Spence Jr. is yet another fighter that Mr. Neutral romanticizes like he romanticizes Ryan Garcia. He was actually arguing Ryan Garcia's innocence.
Why? Because of Ryan's upstanding character?
There are these people. They view boxing through a very different lens than me and you.
Rose-tinted lenses.
Think about the landscape at junior middleweight and what it is exactly Errol would be moving into, and what fighters there you'd give him decent odds to beat. What fighters I'd give him odds to beat. I mean, who?
Oh.
You got unbeaten Charles Conwell, unbeaten Xander Zayas, unbeaten Virgil Ortiz.
Which one of them does Errol beat?
Israel Madrimov, Tim Kazoo, Bakram Murtazaliev.
Which one of them does Errol beat?
Sebastian Fundora? You think he'll beat Sebastian Fundora? We know he can't beat Terence Crawford.
Which one of them does Errol beat?
There is no version of Errol Spence Jr. that beats Terence Crawford. 147, 154, he's too much of a booze hound.
A drunk.
Is that what you guys identify with? The fact that he's an alcoholic, a raging alcoholic? jerk that flips Ferraris and runs around the place intoxicated?
Might be over for him.
And if it's not, it should be. No, I don't think that Rick Glaser is off base, suggesting that anyone who's urging Errol to come back, anyone who's urging him to fight on, doesn't have his best interests in mind. It's not simply that he lost. A lot of fighters lose.
Some rebound, some don't.
Don't you notice that a lot of PBC fighters, the ones that take losses, they're never the same afterwards. They're never who they were. Keith Thurman, since losing to Manny Pacquiao in 2019, he's slugged along, barely active in the last 5 years and irrelevant.
He's not who he was before Manny beat him. Wilder's not who he was before Fury beat him.
Could never get back the aura that he had. You think Spence is going to? Do you believe in Santa Claus too? The Tooth Fairy?
Why do I think PBC fighters struggle to rebound off of losses more so than someone else's fighters?
It's because they were never who you thought they were to begin with.
Ever.
It's what I think. So much goes into the promotion and building up the name, building up the brand, instead of building up the fighter.
You're in the business of fighting. This is the hurt business.
So that a few wide-eyed optimists and casuals can latch on to these souped-up hype jobs that when they lose...
Your entire understanding of boxing is shaken.
You thought you knew what you were looking at. You thought you knew what you were talking about.
You didn't.
I did.
Yes.
Because I'm smarter than you. Better than you.
Yes.
You didn't want to listen. So don't listen. You keep being wrong. That makes you feel better. Hold on to your hope, if that's all you got.
It is.
Put out an interview saying that he's a good fighter, he's a dangerous fighter, he's big, he comes over 20 pounds. I'm like, yo, bro, you just made yourself look like the biggest pussy in boxing. Like, for real, like, you said 200 million. Because now I'm thinking about it, right? I'm like, wait, I'm like, nah, he's probably not even scared of him. But now, after seeing an interview that he did the other day, and he said, no, he's a great fighter, he's dangerous, he's big, he comes over 20. Like, he's the same weight as you at 168. So what does it matter? If y'all going out on Friday at 168, what does it matter? He jumps up 15, 20 pounds. You jump up the same weight, bro. So what's the difference here? It's pussy. It's pussy. It's pussy. You pussy. It's pussy. Now he's pussy. Super pussy.
Edgar ain't the fighter that can make that kind of claim about Canelo. He just isn't. If Canelo were any kind of a pussy, a super pussy, his resume wouldn't be head and shoulders above yours.
Yeah.
See, what people tend to forget is that Canelo started out as a welterweight.
What people tend to forget is that Canelo Alvarez is actually very small as far as super middleweights go.
Did you see when Teofimo was at his press conference? They were practically the same height. They had the same physical dimensions. The difference is Canelo is at super middleweight.
These days, everybody Canelo fights is bigger than Canelo. Hell, even John Ryder, who's not the biggest super middleweight, he was bigger than Canelo.
You know, it was practically the same thing at middleweight. Gennady Golovkin was bigger than Canelo. Daniel Jacobs was bigger than Canelo. At super middleweight, Callum Smith was bigger. Caleb Plant was bigger. Billy Joe Saunders was bigger.
Kovalev was bigger. Bivol was bigger.
Canelo Alvarez is not a big guy, but his opponents often are. So much so that calling him some kind of a pussy, or a super pussy, that coming from Edgar.
Then how do you reconcile what Edgar is saying?
About David Benavidez, about the 200 million, all the stuff he said. If I had to guess, I'd guess that Canelo Alvarez is milking it. If somebody out there with a lot of money is interested in making that fight, then put that money up.
Put it up.
Because that is what I think it is. Canelo Alvarez, all by himself, gets a decent-sized bag. All by himself. Decent enough. He doesn't need nothing from nobody. So if you want to see that fight happen, put the money up.
Put it up.
He's gonna get a big bag. He's gonna get a decent-sized bag pouncing on this putz.
It's not fear.
By now? No, I don't think it's fear. Not for a fighter with a track record like Canelo Alvarez, who has faced more than one high-risk, low-reward opponent before. Then unbeaten Trout, then unbeaten Lara.
These were high-risk, low-reward opponents.
Later on down the line, he took on a division's worth of champions that were more than happy to stay away from each other, not unifying, not risking anything. He took on all the risks.
He did all the legwork.
And this is why I think he has this blasé demeanor now. He's the money. He calls the shots. He's captaining the ship. He don't take orders from nobody. He didn't pay the cost to be the boss.
This is whether you like him or not, or whether you agree with him or not. If we're gonna wrap our minds around Canelo Alvarez's attitude,
Edgar Berlanga is talking about Canelo not fighting David Benavidez as if he was in any hurry to fight David Benavidez. David wanted to fight Edgar.
he said so.
That could have happened. Why didn't it happen, Edgar? Why didn't it happen?
Edgar's talking like he takes on all these challenges, or he takes on all of these risks when you've only made it this far to win the Canelo Alvarez sweepstakes because of all the risks you didn't take. That's why you're still an unbeaten fighter.
Because of all the risks you didn't take. No, this is another soundbite that's going to age badly.
Canelo Alvarez is not above criticism. No fighter is. But you do want to pay attention to who's doing the criticizing, as Edgar is in no position to talk.
A lot of these fighters aren't. And a lot of the fighters that they like to call lighter touches on Canelo's resume would quite literally be the best names on a guy like Edgar's resume. Pick your poison, pick a name. John Ryder would be the best name on Edgar's resume if he fought him. Jaime Munguia would be the best name on Edgar's resume
If he fought him.
even the aged version of Gennady Golovkin that Canelo fought in their trilogy 1 or 2 years ago, that would still be the best name on a guy like Edgar's resume because Edgar hasn't fought anybody and he's not the only one.
I'm not telling you to be excited about this fight because I'm not excited about this fight. I don't think it's a good fight. I don't think it's a good card.
But I don't think Edgar's in any position to talk either.
You're just here for a check, buddy.
Play nice and be happy that Canelo's giving you this opportunity because you really didn't earn it. So that you can buy more ugly chains, get more ugly tattoos draped over your ugly jackets and $150 haircuts.
Be happy and don't poke the bear.
Don't make Canelo Alvarez angry and don't give him a reason to take anything you say personal. Don't forget, you're supposed to be fighting this guy.
Don't forget.
I feel like Canelo is scraping the bottom of the barrel at this point, entertaining fights with the likes of Edgar Berlanga, Chris Eubank Jr.
Jesus.
I admit, I would prefer to see Canelo fight David Benavidez. I would.
But would Edgar?
That you're calling him a pussy for having not done it. You haven't done it either. And David was calling you out.
These guys ain't got no situational awareness.
We really think that Mbilli would give Canelo a hell of a fight, and I think would beat Canelo, but whatever, it would be a really good fight. And I think Mbilli also would be very competitive with Benavidez.
Bob Arum isn't wrong. A fight between Christian Mbilli and David Benavidez or Christian Mbilli and Canelo Alvarez would be a barn burner, would be a shootout. All action fight between action fighters. I'll go as far as saying that Christian would give Canelo a better fight than the guy he's about to fight, Edgar Berlanga, as I would pick Christian Mbilli to beat Edgar Berlanga comfortably, like most top-level super middleweights in the division right now.
Edgar sucks.
Christian Mbilli will be returning to action in his adopted home of Canada this weekend opposite the ring Ukrainian danger man Sergey Derevyancheko.
Christian's registered as being 5'8.5", but I don't think that's accurate. I actually think he's closer to 5'10", maybe 5'11".
27-0, a vicious puncher, a dangerous puncher, a pressure fighter.
I think he's gonna beat Sergey Derevyancheko like a drum this weekend, but it'll be fun. It'll be fun while it lasts.
Christian's 29, whereas Sergey's 38. Guy's getting long in the tooth. Lost one to Daniel Jacobs, then another to Gennady Golovkin, then another to Jermall Charlo, and another
one to Carlos Adames, and another one to Jaime Munguia. Oddly enough, Sergey's coming off a win.
managed to squeeze in a little tune-up fight, little rebound fight, coming off his latest loss, so he's coming off a win now. And I do think Christian is going to overpower him. I do think Christian is going to beat him because he's bigger, he's younger, he's fresher, just as aggressive, just as active, if not more active within a round. And at 38 years old, there's only so much punishment I think Sergey can take.
For what is a WBC Continental America's super middleweight title, it would seem that Christian is going the WBC route, which is kind of farcical. Under no circumstances are the WBC gonna hold Canelo's feet to the fire. So if what Christian is thinking is that he's gonna secure a mandatory position, try to force the fight with Canelo, it didn't work for David Benavidez, it's not gonna work for you.
I think Bob Arum knows that. I think Bob Arum also knows that Christian, as fun as he is to watch, he's not on Canelo Alvarez's radar like a lot of fighters aren't on his radar. William Skull, Vladimir Shishkin, Bektemir Melenkuziev, Diego Pacheco. There's actually a good proliferation of talent in the super middleweight division that doesn't get talked about enough because whenever super middleweight's brought up, Canelo is the focus.
So if Bob knows that Christian Mbilli don't stand much chance of winning a Canelo Alvarez sweepstakes, why even bother? Why even bring it up?
Because he's a promoter, and he's gonna promote his fighter. He knows Christian's not getting a Canelo fight, he knows that, but he is gonna attach his name to him anyway, the way a lot of people do.
Come on.
And so Canelo Alvarez very recently vacated the IBF title that will be on the line in the upcoming Skull versus Shishkin fight. I imagine that whoever wins that fight could soon become a person of interest for Christian Mbilli because he may not get the chance to fight for a title against Canelo, but he could get to fight for a title against them, against whoever wins that fight.
He's gotta beat Sergey.
So one thing that's consistent about Sergey, even in fights that he loses, is that he always puts up a good fight, even in fights where he loses. I imagine that a fighter that opens up as much as Christian Mbilli, throwing punches and bunches, just salvos of punches, there is a chance that Sergey could get in with something good, rattle his cage.
Sergey's a talented combination puncher. He's got some pop, he's got some power.
He's one of only 2 fighters that I've ever seen hurt Gennady Golovkin. I remember that fight. He caught Gennady with a body shot.
It hurt him.
Gennady Golovkin, one of the best chins postmodern boxing has ever seen, one of the most durable fighters with the best poker face. When he took that body shot, you could see he didn't like it. So Sergey can punch.
He can crack.
And he can make this weekend's fight a fight. He can make it a contest and keep it a contest, though ultimately, when push comes to shove, I think Christian Mbilli is going to overpower him, overwhelm him.
Stop him.
Sergey Derevyancheko, in 20 professional bouts, has never been stopped. He's never been knocked out. 15 wins with 5 losses and no draws, 10 knockouts. Sergey has never been knocked out. And it's not because he hasn't been in there with guys who can punch. He's been in there with guys who can punch.
Never been stopped, but there's a first time for everything. I think this weekend, Christian Mbilli will be the first to stop Sergey Derevyancheko.
After that, what Bob Arum needs to do, more than trying to attach Christian's name to Canelo's for a fight that isn't going to materialize, isn't going to happen, what Bob and everybody at Top Rank need to do is they need to pay to play. You need to get Christian Mbilli a fight with a Caleb Plant, or maybe a Demetrius Andrade. These familiar faces and former champions.
They're gonna want a lot of money.
So see if you can't get Turki Al-Sheikh involved.
It'd be a good way for a guy who's flying a bit low on the radar to draw some attention to himself, like Agit Cabello did in stopping Arslanbek Makhmudov and stopping Frankie Sanchez.
Maybe you should let Turki Al-Sheikh work his magic on your guy, Christian Mbilli. See if he can't get him a solid fight.
Because he ain't getting Canelo.
Like it or lump it, Christian, as fun as he is to watch, is nowhere on Canelo Alvarez's radar.